Thanks so much. Thanks for having us. We're Spatial Pixel. We're joining you today from Philadelphia. And it's not lost on us that we are joining from a screen. We wish we were there with you, we really do. But really honored to be here. Great.
Yeah, so where we usually start is, as we all know, screens have been getting closer and closer to our faces for like 100 years, starting with movie theaters and then televisions in a more kind of intimate social setting, and then individualized screen-based experiences with the personal computer and mobile devices, and now finally like screens in our faces with AR and VR goggles. And many of these technologies are quite individual and make our experience isolating, and can even make us, as you know, more susceptible to manipulation by advertisers and disinformation. And so part of our work is centers around a platform that we call Recession, which is a software-based spatial computer as an alternative to glasses and goggles, and this is soon to be open source. And we like to say this is one for your space and not for your face. And it's also part of our efforts to create a kind of community of creators around screenless alternatives. And it uses a number of artificial intelligence technologies, from computer vision to large language models, and mostly from a perspective of using natural language and other forms of multimodal expression like gesture to both express and interpret intent. And so we're hoping to, at the same time, expand the number of creatives who are working in this space, because spatial computing is very hard. Like augmented reality SDKs and softwares are still very difficult to write. And so with this, using natural language, anyone can program logic and interactions around space.
So I think one of the things that maybe many folks here agree with is that we like this idea of our interactions being much more present in the physical world, and also just more collective, that what I see is also what you are seeing if we're in the same space. So much of our technology today is really structured around the individual, from like user experience, user, individual, iMac, the iPhone, a personalized news feed. So we think we need more interactions that are really collective.
So do you want to?
So this was a small pop-up art gallery we did in Philadelphia. It was inaccessible to the public. And so we just used a small cigar box that showed the name of the artists that were in the gallery inside. And so when you move this cigar box around, it's connected to the projector that highlights that artist's work. And so what you're seeing here is, it's just highlighting each artist as you move this box around. And what was kind of surprising was how much people started interacting with each other and teaching each other how to use the box to see what was inside. And it's just a super simple interaction, but it really changes the dynamic of always looking at the phone. And so, so much of our interactions with computers and devices are very isolating. And not only are they really isolating, we have to speak computer. We have to speak on its terms, not in the way we think. This is actually a self-portrait of me. This is most of my day when I'm interacting with a computer. This is me like booking a flight or something. But even to interact with the computer, we are still entering information into user interfaces, almost like manual data entry. Just think about creating a password that has to contain 8 to 16 characters, and it has to have XYZ. I actually had to crop this just so that it would fit. There's actually like a list of 10 more qualifiers that you have to do. So I think instead of us speaking in computer, the computer should meet us where we are. So we like to think instead of us having to give all of our attention to an interface, almost like entering computer land, that our interaction should meet us where we are in the place that we're at. What is the mindset we're in or the activity we're doing in that moment?
So for example, think about what it just takes to try out like a new cocktail recipe. I don't advocate for using alcohol as stress relief, but let's just say at the end of the day, you've logged off Zoom and a colleague has recommended a cocktail recipe to you. And we all know the routine. You authenticate into your device, open the search engine, submit the query, then you ironically have to search through the search results manually. And then once you find a post, read someone's life story and then or at least scroll past it just to get to the ingredients. And so, but we all know that large language models can get that information for us much more simply. But even with that, you still have to mentally dive into the interface and use the rules of the interface. And so this was a concept for an information system that knows where we are and presents that information to us in a kind of way that requires a more passive form of attention rather than dedicated active attention. And so we're starting to experiment with these ideas around how we can use things like projection to keep you present in the moment, like present with your guests or when your hands are like covered with vermouth and you're preparing that cocktail. So.
We like this idea of interactions that are maybe more peripheral, that don't require so much of our directed attention, that can be almost like mentally quieter, and kind of inspired by things like the dumb phone movement, as opposed to things like VR or phones that are high sensory and like incredibly stimulating.
And if we expand the thinking of this to different scales, like the scale of a neighborhood or even a city, it starts to become really apparent that so much information is already embedded into our physical environments. And oftentimes that information won't even make it into a central digital system. So for example, like here in Philadelphia, the street parking rules are still embedded into the street, like into the signs themselves, into the paint on the curbs. And if you even tried to look it up, one, you would run into the fact that the data around parking is still only like organized lots and garages, but then you still have to face that problem of complexity and confusion with having to find the right app and learn how to navigate it. And so we played with an idea around what if you could just point to information in a place, like with physical gesture, and ask about that information immediately around you. And so in this next demo in Talk to the City, we're starting to experiment with how we can do that in a mobile way, combining multiple information sources with a vision-based LLM. And so, and just to know, like these queries that you're seeing are actually filmed live, and Violet has a number of pieces of equipment on her that are just outside of the frame. So.
What was important to Philadelphia about Quakers?
Quakers were integral to Philadelphia's founding, emphasizing religious tolerance and participatory government.
Does the 5 go to Liberty Lands Park?
The SEPTA Route 5 bus does not go directly to Liberty Lands Park.
Where does Route 48 go?
The SEPTA Route 48 bus travels from the area of 27th and Allegheny to the Frankfurt Transportation Center.
Can I park here right now?
Yes, you can park there, as the sign indicates the restrictions apply Monday to Saturday, and it's currently Sunday.
What's the most popular place on this list?
The most popular place listed is likely the Independence Park sites, which includes historic attractions like Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell.
What is currently playing at the Arden Theater?
The Arden Theater Company is currently showcasing Lady Sitting, which has been extended and runs through March 3rd.
Great. So I really like this idea that we can move more away from this very individualized experience where big tech owns and dictates a lot of our interactions with technology, and really like is continually extracting individual information about us, our individualized data, and even hijacking our individual attention. So rather than that kind of individual extraction, we think so many of our interactions in public space are really, we can view them almost as like a public resource. So is there a way that, that governance can actually be localized and directed by the people in those public spaces or the local communities? So rather than big tech owning and dictating AI, what if our technology interactions were actually local models that were owned, governed, and dictated more collectively? I think one thing that's really interesting here is that on your individual device, we're continually giving away consent, and the public space used to be this domain where we actually debated what should go in public space, what is allowed, how should that be governed? So how can we think similarly of this as a public resource and have those conversations? And if our spaces become programmable, I think one potential here is that it allows more accessibility and control over what the programs in those spaces are. Could this actually make it easier for local communities to give feedback and adapt to public spaces and even write spatial protocols about what interactions should be in public space? What can information in that environment be used for or not used for?
Right. You want to show this one?
Sure.
All right, in interest of time, we'll show you the pre-recorded version of this. We were going to run out and do this analysis live. But this is procession again. And what you're seeing is essentially showing off the ability to program an analysis with natural language. And so can this is targeted towards like city workers or even individuals with an interest in public space, and it's just going through and someone is asking and programming this analysis to look at essentially parking availability, and one can imagine using these vision models and this mechanism, these kinds of mechanisms to make this analysis more accessible. So.
Yeah. Great. So we hope if there's anything you take away from today, it's that so many of our interactions with technologies are already happening in public spaces, and that we hope that we can build technologies that are more collective and intentionally governed in public spaces. So thank you very much.